I didn't hear the gate open. I didn't even hear footsteps. I was lying on the thin mattress on the garage floor, trying to warm my hands by rubbing them together. The cold had become my normal. The hunger had become my quiet friend. I had learned to stay still so the pain in my ribs didn't rise again. Then the garage door opened fast, and a familiar voice rushed in with fear. "Dad? Dad." It was my son, Tunde. He froze when he saw me. His face changed the way a sky changes before rain. He dropped his small travel bag and knelt beside me. "Dad, what happened to you?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Why are you in the garage? You have a pension of 7,000 a month. What is going on?" I opened my mouth to answer, but only air came out. I had not eaten since the morning before. He touched my arm, felt how cold it was, and his worry grew even deeper. Before I could speak, the door that led into the main house swung open. Kelvin, my son-in-law, stepped out with the same careless smile he always wore when he thought he was in control. He looked at Tunde and shrugged. "Why are you shouting? He's fine," Kelvin said. Then he laughed a little and added, "And that pension belongs to me now. I'm taking it all." Tunde rose slowly. Very slowly. He didn't speak. He didn't shout. He just looked at Kelvin, as if he was studying a stain on the wall. Then he did something small, so small that Kelvin didn't understand it at first. Tunde took off his wristwatch. He unbuckled it calmly, placed it on the small wooden table by the garage door, and wiped his hands on his jeans. Kelvin's smile dropped. His arms folded tighter. His throat moved as he swallowed. Something about that small action, just removing a watch, made Kelvin step back. But before anything else happened, my strength gave way again. My legs trembled when I tried to sit up. Tunde turned to me quickly and held my shoulders. "Dad, don't move," he said gently. "Just breathe. I'm here now." He looked away from Kelvin and focused on me, as if nothing else mattered. He helped me sit properly against the wall and asked, "How long have you been in here?" I didn't answer. It was not because I didn't want to, but because shame sat on my tongue like a heavy stone. It had been weeks, maybe longer. Days had started to blend together when the meals became fewer and the nights became colder. Tunde looked around the garage. The broken fan. The old chair with no back. The empty water bottle. The blanket too thin to warm even a child. His jaw tightened slowly. He touched the bruise on my arm with 2 fingers. "Who did this to you?" he asked. I looked down because I didn't want him to see the truth in my eyes. He lifted my chin gently. "Dad, talk to me." And finally, my voice came out soft, thin, but real. I didn't want to cause trouble. Tunde closed his eyes for a moment. Not in anger, not in confusion, but in pain. Only then did he whisper, "Tell me everything, Dad." And for the first time in a long time, I felt safe enough to begin. Before we continue, please comment where you are watching from and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting stories. I never planned to end up in a garage. It happened slowly, the way dust settles in a room until you suddenly realize you can't see the floor anymore. After my wife died years ago, the house felt too quiet, so I allowed my daughter Amaka and her husband Kelvin to move in for a short time. At first, Kelvin acted polite. He called me Daddy with a wide smile and carried my bags from the car. He sat near me during meals and asked about my health. I believed he cared. I believed he respected me. The change began in small ways, so small I didn't fight them. It started with bills. One evening, he walked up to me with folded papers in his hand and said, "Daddy, things are tight. Let me handle the house bills for you. You don't need stress." It sounded like help, so I agreed. Then he asked for my ATM card. Just for a day, so he could pay some fees quickly. The next month, he asked again, and again. Soon I didn't know which bills were real and which were excuses. He stopped showing me receipts. When I asked questions, he would smile and say, "Daddy, Trust me. So, now, the second change came with space. One afternoon, I returned from a hospital checkup and found my bedroom door open. Amaka and Kelvin were inside, arranging their clothes in my wardrobe. "Daddy, we just want the bigger room," Amaka said softly. "It will help with the kids' bedtime." I didn't argue. They had 2 small children, and I wanted peace. So I moved to the smaller room. 2 months later, Kelvin stood at the door of even that smaller room with a strange smile. "Daddy, the small room is too close to the children. They make noise at night. Move to the garage for now, please. Just for a little while." He made it sound temporary. But he brought no new plan later, only more reasons why I should stay there. I tried to keep my dignity. I swept the garage each morning. I folded my blanket neatly. I told myself it was fine. That old age required adjustment. But little by little, the house stopped feeling like mine. My decisions didn't matter anymore. My pension, my only strength, was the next thing he aimed for. One morning, Kelvin walked into the garage holding my bank statement. He waved it in the air as if he owned it. "Daddy, you don't know how to manage money. $7,000 a month is too much for someone your age. Let me handle it. I can use it to support the family." I tried to explain that I could take care of myself, but he cut me off. "Don't argue, just sign." Amaka stood behind him, her eyes on the ground. She didn't speak for me. She didn't stop him. And because I didn't want to cause conflict, I signed. From that day, the pension went straight into his hands. He controlled everything: the food I ate, the medicine I took, and the small allowance he sometimes remembered to give me. The last part, the part that hurt most, was how normal it began to feel. I ate less. I spoke less. I moved with caution, afraid to anger anyone in my own house. And every night in the cold garage, I repeated the same words to myself. "Just stay calm. Don't bring trouble. It will get better." But it never did. It only got worse. Tunde had been working abroad for months, but he always called me on weekends. Our last call was short, and I tried to sound fine. Still, he heard something in my voice that I could not hide: tiredness, maybe fear. I didn't tell him what was happening, but he felt it. He always noticed things others ignored. That was when he decided to come home without telling anyone. His flight landed early in the morning. Instead of calling from the airport, he headed straight home with his small bag. He wanted to surprise me. He thought he would meet me in my old room, reading the newspaper or preparing tea. He didn't expect anything strange. But when he reached our street, he noticed something unusual. Mrs. Obasi, my neighbor, was sweeping outside. She looked at him with worry. "Tunde, you came," she said softly. "Yes, Ma," he replied. "Is everything okay?" She hesitated. Her eyes moved toward my house and then back to him. "Your father, he doesn't look happy these days." Tunde asked what she meant, but she only shook her head and whispered, "Go and see him." He didn't waste time. He thanked her and walked fast to the gate. The compound looked different, messier, louder, and strangely empty at the same time. Children's toys were scattered everywhere. The front door was wide open, but no one greeted him. When he entered the living room, he froze. The place looked nothing like the home he grew up in. The furniture was pushed around, clothes were lying on chairs, and the fridge had a small padlock on it. He checked the bedrooms. My old room was filled with Kelvin's things. The smaller room was filled with children's clothes and toys. But what worried him most was what he couldn't find me. He walked from room to room, calling my name, but the house answered with silence. He stepped outside again, looking around, trying to understand where I could be. That was when he heard a faint sound like someone coughing behind a closed door. He followed the noise to the garage. He touched the handle and felt how cold it was. He pushed the door open quickly, and there I was, lying on the thin mattress, too weak to stand, too hungry to speak, and too ashamed to admit how long I had been living like that. That was the moment the truth finally reached him, not through words, but through the state he found me in. And from that moment, Tunde changed. Not loudly, not angrily, but in a calm, focused way that showed he was ready to face whatever caused this. Tunde helped me sit properly on the garage floor, but his mind had already left the room. I could see it in his eyes. He was putting pieces together, one by one, faster than I could speak them. He stood up slowly and looked around as if he was studying every mark on the wall, every empty bowl, every torn blanket. "Dad," he said softly, "you're not staying here anymore." His voice was calm, but firm like a closed door. Before I could answer, the garage door opened again, and Kelvin stepped in with his usual confidence. He tried to act like he owned the space. "Tunde, relax," he said. "Your father likes it here. He's comfortable." Tunde didn't look at him. He just walked past him, into the house. That simple act shook Kelvin more than shouting ever could. Tunde entered the living room and scanned everything with sharp eyes. The padlocked fridge, the missing remote, the messy piles of clothes, the papers stuffed carelessly on the dining table. He opened drawers, checked envelopes, even picked up a few slips from the floor. Kelvin followed him, pretending to laugh. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "This is a family house. We're all one." Tunde raised his hand slightly, telling him to stop talking. He continued checking the papers until he found one that made his face freeze. It was a bank slip, my pension withdrawal receipt. The amount was written in clear numbers, and Kelvin's initials were scribbled at the bottom. "Where's my father's bank card?" Tunde asked. Kelvin opened his mouth, but no words came out. Amaka walked into the room at that moment. Her eyes worried. She held her phone tightly and avoided looking at me. She probably expected an argument, but Tunde did not shout. He simply placed the bank slip on the table where everyone could see it. "Who has been taking his pension?" he asked quietly. Silence filled the room so heavily it felt like another person standing there. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "It's fine, Tunde. I agreed to." "No, Dad," he said, shaking his head. "You agreed because you were pushed." His voice was still calm. That calmness scared Kelvin more than anger. Tunde sat down on a chair and looked at both of them, first at Amaka, then at Kelvin. His eyes were steady, not shaking, not afraid. "Tell me everything," he said. Kelvin tried to stand tall. "I take the pension because I manage the house. He doesn't need that kind of money. We use it for the family." "For the family?" Tunde repeated. "My father sleeps in the garage." Amaka's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. She only held her phone tighter. Tunde walked to the door frame, touched the lock on the fridge, and shook his head slowly. Then, he turned to me. "Dad, how long have they been doing this?" I lowered my eyes. "Months." Tunde breathed in deeply, not in anger, but as if he was storing energy inside himself. Then he began moving around the house again, checking cupboards, pulling out drawers, looking at more papers, his mind working like a quiet machine. He wasn't loud. He wasn't violent. He wasn't careless. He was preparing. Preparing for something none of them expected. Something smart. Something final. Something that would change everything the moment he decided to act. Tunde finished checking every drawer, every envelope, every corner of the house. Kelvin stood near the wall, pretending to be brave, but his hands kept moving, and his eyes refused to stay still. Amaka sat on the arm of the sofa, her face pale, her phone shaking in her hand. Tunde returned to the dining table and placed all the documents he had gathered into one neat pile. Bank slips, pension records, electricity bills that were never paid, even a letter from a betting company with Kelvin's name on it. He sat down slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. "Kelvin," he said in a calm voice, "you've been using my father's pension to pay your debts." Kelvin tried to laugh. "Everybody has debts, but not everybody steals to pay them," Tunde replied. That one sentence made Kelvin's shoulders drop. Tunde reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and pressed record. Then, he placed it on the table. His voice didn't rise. His face didn't twist. He simply said, "Explain how my father ended up in the garage." Kelvin froze. Amaka looked away. Tunde didn't blink. "Talk," he repeated. Kelvin slowly sank into the nearest chair. He didn't confess everything, but he admitted enough: the pressure, the money problems, the plan to use my pension until he got back on his feet. He said he was just helping the family, but the tremble in his voice showed he knew his excuses were falling apart. Tunde stopped the recording. He stood up and walked toward me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Dad, get your things. You're coming with me today." Kelvin jumped up. "He can't leave. He lives here." Tunde looked at him with quiet strength. Then Tunde took his watch from the garage table, the same watch he had removed earlier, and put it back on his wrist. He dialed a number on his phone. Kelvin panicked. "Who are you calling?" "People who can help straighten this out," Tunde replied. Amaka finally spoke, her voice small. "Tunde, please, don't bring outsiders into this. You brought strangers into it the day you let him sleep on a cold floor," he answered softly. Within the hour, 2 officials arrived, one from the pension office and another from the community council. Tunde handed them the documents he had organized. He explained everything clearly, without anger, without exaggeration. They listened. They asked questions. They took more notes than Kelvin expected. By the end of their visit, Kelvin received instructions he dared not argue with. He was ordered to return control of the pension immediately. He was also warned about further investigation if any money was missing. Amaka cried quietly but said nothing to defend her husband. Tunde escorted me out of the garage for the last time. I carried only a small bag, my clothes, my glasses, and an old photo of my late wife. The sun outside felt warm on my face, warmer than it had felt in months. As we reached the gate, I looked back at the house that had once been my pride. Now it was only a building. Tunde placed his arm around my shoulders. "Dad, you're done suffering. I'm here now." And for the first time in a long time, I felt something rise inside me, something I thought I had lost. Dignity, peace, and freedom. The garage door closed behind us. And this time, it wasn't closing on me. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting stories.